Exactly how does a person get to be over 400 pounds? And then how do you get the weight off once you're there? In today's video, I chat with Steve about his 3-year weight loss journey. At a top weight of 420 pounds, Steve tried absolutely everything to shed the weight from his life with zero success. As a career chef for 23 years, he lived through all the stigma, assumptions, and depression that bigger people are often faced with until he came to the realization that he needed help. That help came in the form of surgery. 18 months post-op and now clocking in at 208, Steve is a new man with a new lease on life. And he has a message he would love to share with others that are in the position that he once was. Based on how I came to know his story, I'm absolutely amazed and very grateful that he was willing to chat so openly, and I want to say a special thanks to Steve. So please sit back and enjoy my chat with Steve Briscoe.
I want to get right into it. Obviously, you posted a picture online in a Facebook group. You got a lot of kudos, which I'm sure are well deserved.
Yep.
You lost a ton of weight. I don't even remember the specifics. Tell me about your weight loss journey and how it began.
Okay, so at my highest, I was 420 pounds.
Okay.
Basically, about 12 years ago, I ended up, for lack of better words, clinically depressed. I ended up on medications, and those medications just made me pack on weight, unlike anything you've ever seen in your life.
Okay.
And then, no matter what I did, I couldn't get rid of it. I went from 420 down to 367 pounds. At that point, I decided that I was going to get weight loss surgery. So I went in, did all my appointments that you got to do for the surgery. They run you through psychological assessments, so on and so forth. And the surgery I was supposed to get was called gastric bypass. The surgery I ended up getting was gastric sleeve. Now, with the gastric sleeve, you're supposed to lose a lot less weight compared to the bypass. With the bypass, you're supposed to, you don't really have to work. I'm not going to say you don't have to work as hard, because anyone, even with the surgery, still has to work hard.
Mhm.
But your stomach is made into a pouch that's really tiny, about that big.
Yeah.
With the sleeve, all they do is they literally turn it into about the size of a banana. Okay. And with the gastric bypass, what happens is your whole rest of your stomach is still in there. With my surgery, they cut a pile of my stomach out.
Okay.
Okay, so with the gastric bypass, again, sorry to jump back and forth, but with the gastric bypass, they basically make a little pouch in there, and you have to really screw up to stretch your pouch. With the surgery, I ended up having to get just normal eating from day to day. I could stretch myself out and gain weight again really quickly.
Mm-hmm. With what you have or what you were supposed to have?
The gastric sleeve, the one that I've got, it's very easy to screw up with the sleeve, and you lose a lot less weight generally, is what they say.
Okay.
158 pounds in 6 months, and I've been maintaining it for another 7 months since. It's been 13 months since my surgery.
Yeah.
I fluctuate 2 to 3 pounds at most. So I sit at 212.6. Sometimes I'll go as high as 216, and sometimes I go as low as 208.
Wow.
Depending on how much you've had to drink that day, for lack of better words, or whatever, you know?
So you literally are half the man you used to be.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the reason I ended up having to get the gastric sleeve, and this is something that I wanted to bring up in the interview because I think it's important for people to know.
Yeah, please use this as a platform to educate. I don't have a lot of people watching, but for anybody that is, hopefully you can educate them. Yeah.
Awesome. And that's something that I was hoping this would lead into.
Yeah.
When they went in to do the surgery on me, I was literally on the table, and I was supposed to get gastric bypass. I had done all the testing. I had gone through everything I was supposed to. There's a test they do called H. pylori test.
Okay.
Now, 2 years ago,
test, like, what is it?
it's just a breath test. You breathe into a tube. People never get this test done because whenever you get it done, it costs you $100.
Okay.
Okay, so it's a test that most doctors don't even prescribe, because most people, when they go to get their blood work done, will just say, no, I don't want to do that test. 2 years ago, when I had been working out, dieting, I'd been trying my damnedest to lose weight. And instead of losing weight, after a year of working out, eating properly, doing everything right, I started gaining weight. And then I got what I thought was the flu. So I ended up going to see my doctor for something completely unrelated. And he looked at me and he said, "You look really gray. You look like you're anemic." And I said, "Okay." So he did some testing on me, sent me for blood, and my iron came back at 3.
Okay.
Now, if
Give
you
us
have
a perspective. What should it be?
80,
Okay.
I
So
should have been
clean
asleep on
no
the couch.
iron in the blood.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's why I was gray. My
Okay.
doctor called me on a Saturday night at 8 o'clock to tell me that my iron was 3.
Yeah.
He was panicked. Okay. If your doctor's calling you on a Saturday night at 8 o'clock, he's panicked.
Yeah.
And he called me and he said, "We need to get you either infusions or on iron pills right away. So we're going to try the iron pills first. Go to Walmart, ask for the ones that are behind the counter. They're a special one." He's like, and normally most people take 1 of those a day. I was on 5.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I took those for 30 days and my iron went up from 3 to 7.
Okay.
So at that point, he's panicking and he's sending me for every test under the sun because one of the common signs of iron deficiency being that low is leukemia.
Sure.
So he's got me doing all kinds of tests and I had to go for scopes, this, that, and the other. And they discovered that I actually had H. pylori. My entire life, I've been told that I had IBS. I never had IBS. I had H. pylori for 16 years undiagnosed.
Okay. Okay.
So,
After this call, I'm going to get you to text me the spelling just so I can put that in the description of the video.
Yep.
So that's an iron deficiency, or is there more to that?
no, it's actually a stomach issue. It has nothing to do with your iron. But what happened was my stomach had ripped open and I bled so much inside that my iron bottomed out.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Now, when you hear of bleeding inside, you assume if you're bleeding inside and you, let's say, for this kind of gross, but if you use a washroom, you would assume that you would see blood. But it turns out that black stool means you have blood.
Okay.
Which I didn't know.
So
what happened twice in a 6-month period, I thought I had the flu. Both times my stomach lining had ripped right open. And it was actually pure blood coming out of me. So that bottomed out my iron because my stomach had to repair itself.
Of course, yeah.
Right? So skipping forward to me going through the tests for my surgery, they said, "Have you ever had H. pylori?" I said, "Yes." They said, "You have to go get tested." Now, the regimen for H. pylori to get rid of it is 3,300 milligrams of different amoxicillin and penicillin a day for 14 days. Okay, and then you have another pill that you have to take for 6 months every day to make sure that your stomach will actually heal. So I did the regimen. After the first, like once they discovered I had it, I did the regimen, and everyone just assumes that you're clear after that because that's a lot of amoxicillin. And if there's anything left in your body for infection, it should kill
it.
Yeah. So as I'm going through my testing for my surgery, they said, "Have you ever had H. pylori?" I said, "Yes." They said, "Okay, we need you to go get tested." This was a year and a half after the first time that I had been tested, diagnosed, and treated. I still had H. pylori.
Okay.
So this time it was 21 days and 5,500 milligrams of amoxicillin, penicillin, and other medications. Now, I don't know if you know this or not, but you good bacteria and your bad bacteria, they fight each other, and that's what keeps you basically balanced and alive.
Yeah, I would imagine with that much antibiotic, you've got neither.
There's nothing left. The inside of your mouth is raw. Your eyes, the white in your eyes hurt. Your teeth hurt. Your hair hurts. Everything. It destroys everything. You feel like after about day 6, you feel like the biggest bag of garbage, and you feel that way for about a month.
Right.
So I passed that. After I did that and I went and got tested again, I no longer had H. pylori. They said, "You're good to go for your surgery." I go for my surgery. I'm on the table. I'm out. They cut me open. The inside of my entire stomach, which was about the size of a volleyball because of how big I was.
Sure.
The entire inside of my stomach, except for a spot that big, was pure scar tissue.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Just layers and layers and layers of scar tissue. And there was, I wish I could get my hands on it, but I probably can't. They had a video of them with the doctor, he had his arms inside me, pulling my stomach lining off of my internal organs.
Ooh.
That's why I couldn't lose weight, because my stomach, most people's stomach, they say your stomach shrinks. It doesn't actually shrink, but it does get smaller technically. Mine
Right.
couldn't do that because it was pure scar tissue.
Right.
So on the table, they had to decide, instead of giving him the bypass surgery, we're going to give him the sleeve surgery, cut out all of this bad part of his stomach. And then we're going to give him just a whole stomach that's fresh tissue, that's not scar tissue. So my stomach ended up being about that big at first.
Right.
And now it's probably about the size of a banana now, because over time it will expand a bit, right? So basically, they literally, as I came out of the surgery, the doctor told me, he said, had you not come for the surgery in the next 10 years, you would have had stomach cancer. Because my whole stomach scar tissue, it was building up cell over cell over cell.
Yeah. So, okay, so I have a fair bit of questions out of that.
Yep.
So first of all, with the stomach, I'm going to just estimate at 95% scar tissue.
Yeah.
Were you even absorbing nutrients at that point or digesting food properly?
No, that's why I couldn't lose weight. All my food was staying in my stomach as just big chunks of crap that would slowly process. So let's say after you eat, it takes you 2 hours to digest your food. What I ate this morning would still be digesting tonight, and whatever else I ate through the day would basically be behind it, waiting to get in there.
Right. Okay.
So it's like filling up a soccer ball with water and then marshmallows and then chips, and you know what I mean? And nothing is going through except one little space.
Right. Well, using the soccer ball, it's almost like having a full soccer ball and trying to squeeze the air out of the tiny little hole, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
you didn't and you didn't have, or did you have any other kind of warning signs or discomfort, or did you just attribute it to your size and overall discomfort?
Oh, I've had stomach pain for 16 years, right? I was told it was IBS 16 years ago. So I just learned to live with it. It got to the point where like, if I ever said my stomach hurts, that's what most people would be boiled down in pain crying, was just an average hurt for me, because I was so used to having that pain.
Right. Okay. So you were being treated for IBS? Like, did you take medication for IBS?
Yeah, my whole life.
Oh, so just the wrong diagnosis, wrong medication, wrong treatment, just the whole works. Wow. Okay. That's unfortunate. And if I hear correctly, it could have been resolved if you took this $100 test 16 years ago, possibly.
Yeah, well, there would have been a very different course of treatment. I wouldn't have ended up with the scar tissue in my stomach. I would have probably ended up just having to do the antibiotics back then.
Okay.
And cleared itself up, and I would have never carried forward, right?
Okay.
But like I said, what happened with that being the perfect storm, basically, for lack of better words, with the coupling of the antidepressant medication that made me gain weight, as my stomach was already starting to build scar tissue, it just got out of control real fast.
Yeah, of course. It just sort of compounds the problem, right?
Yep.
Well, okay. Well, I mean, can't do much about a misdiagnosis, but
Nope.
you know, you are where you are today. It sounds like you're doing a lot better. So I'm guessing there must have been some sort of talk before your surgery that, hey, we're going in for bypass, but it's going to depend what we see inside.
Yes.
We'll sort of give you the best that we can give you when we see it. Is that a fair assumption?
The thing is that and I'm a little disappointed, because as you're going through the process, it takes a year to get the surgery, right? Because they want to make sure that you're actually dedicated to it, and that you're going to make the menu changes, and so they want you to be successful. Yep. So the Sudbury program is fairly good. I had some issues with them for different reasons, which we'll talk about. I don't know if I really want them in the interview, but I'll tell you anyway.
Sure.
But they're fairly good in the sense that, like, they try to prep you as best you can, except that they make it sound like the bypass is the gold standard and the sleeve is like getting bronze.
Okay.
So you know what I mean? Everybody that doesn't get the bypass and ends up with the sleeve, like, I know 5 or 6 people, because Sudbury has a support group for people that have had the surgery, and people go on there after they get the surgery and they're pissed. pissed that they ended up having to get the sleeve instead of the bypass. As soon as I came out of surgery and they told me that, my very first words were, when can I come for revision surgery?
Okay.
And then I decided that, you know what, this is the tool I was given. I'm going to make it work for me.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty stubborn. So I moved forward with what I was given instead of, sitting back and being miserable that I didn't get what I wanted.
Sure.
I decided to make the tool that I was given actually work for me. And that's where my stubbornness came in. I mean, I walked 40,000 steps a day for 5 months.
Okay.
I work out. I have a gym in my basement that I built. I work out 6 days. I worked out 6 to 7 days a week at the time. I was off, right, because of COVID.
Of course. Yeah.
So I just took advantage of all that free time and put it to good use. I'm in my town. I'm known as the guy that walks everywhere because people see me every day walking.
Okay.
Now it got to the point where I was losing too much weight. When I hit 208, I started to look sick. So I had to cut my steps back. I had to cut my working out back a bit. I had to increase my calorie count a bit so that I stay at that 212, 216 mark.
Okay.
Because I look sick otherwise.
Okay. How tall are you?
Almost 6'1".
Okay. So they want you at a certain level for.
No, they don't. I wanted me, like at one point when I hit 208, I could see all my ribs and you could see my sternum. I just, when I looked at myself in the mirror, I looked too thin. Okay. For my build, I looked thickly.
Okay.
I also have
fair enough, right? Okay. Yeah, you look like you're a pretty broad shaped guy. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay. 54-inch shoulders. So if you get me too skinny, I look pretty
right.
Horrible.
Okay. I'm gonna ask you some personal questions. I hope you don't mind. And like I said, we cut them out if you're uncomfortable with them. But this is I'm gonna say sort of a selfish interview in the sense that I've always been curious how people get to a certain size, and it's not a judgment, but I'll say I struggle with my own weight, obviously not to the degree, and I don't want to put myself in the same camp, but I would think for my own sake, I think, okay, well, I struggle and I get to a certain point and I'm just fed up. How do you get to the point of 423 pounds? Was weight always a factor? You mentioned antidepressants. What would you say was the leading cause of getting to 400 pounds versus 208 or 250, 300?
Most of my life, I struggled with weight. The only time I didn't was in my mid-20s, and I worked out a lot and so on and so forth. And I tried to do my best to control it. And then as me and the ex-wife broke up, I just kind of didn't care anymore. I stopped doing any sort of working out, which is when you go from working out fairly frequently for a good 5 years to just stopping dead instantly, you're going to gain 50 pounds like in a month.
Yeah.
Like, because your body's just like, ooh, good, we can put all this into fat now.
Yeah.
Right. So you gain that weight initially, and you all of a sudden you're buying a bit of bigger pant size, and you're like, oh, whatever. It's just, it's because I'm not working out anymore. Right. So you don't really pay attention to it. And also at the time, I'm going through a pile of stuff because I just didn't care about anything. I'm dealing with an ex-wife.
Right.
So you start to just kind of ignore yourself. And then one day you have trouble walking from here to the end of the driveway or here to the end of the block. And you just still in that I don't really give a shit mode, right? So you just walk from here to the car, and then you let the car do the work for you.
Right.
And next thing you know, you're to the point where you're so far gone that you can't even make it around the block, let's say, for a walk. So you just don't. And then, like I said, about, I think 3 years ago, I was like, that's enough of this. Like, I've always worked really hard. Don't get me wrong. You put me in a kitchen, I could dance. I was that big and I could dance in a kitchen like I could outwork any of the 20-year-old kids in a heartbeat. I ran the Husky here for 6 years, and I could outrun anybody in that whole kitchen. They couldn't even believe it. I looked like a freaking ninja in that kitchen. But after I was done in that kitchen, I'd come home, plop down on the couch, and not move.
Right.
Yeah.
So
basically, 3 years ago, I like I said, I'm going to change my life. I built my gym in the basement. I got a treadmill. I was doing I didn't have a Fitbit at the time or anything to track my steps, but I was doing a good hour of walking a day. So it had to be close to 10,000 steps.
Mhm.
And I was working out probably every other day at that point. And I'd step on the scale and I gained 4 pounds
Mhm.
after a month of doing it. Well, right there, you just
Yeah.
get frustrated.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did that for a year and I never lost a damn pound.
Okay.
And that's when I went, okay, maybe I need help with this. And that's when I decided that maybe the surgery was a good idea.
Okay. So you mentioned that you worked out.
Yeah.
I know for my own self, I I can never seem to exercise out my diet. I always, whenever I've lost weight, I've succeeded only by changing diet and adding exercise. I can't do just the exercise. So I'm wondering, you know, you built your gym, you did workout. What did your diet look like?
How I ate, yeah, I actually, because at the time that I was diagnosed diabetic, type 2
Okay.
diabetic,
Yep.
and I cut out all sugar, like all sugar. My blood sugar went from 31 to 7 in 2
Okay.
months
Okay.
because I wouldn't even eat white bread.
Yeah.
And I still kept the weight on. It didn't matter what I did.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I went an entire, my wife likes to bake, and I went an entire Christmas season without eating one sweet.
Good for you. That's dedication.
Yeah, I was pretty miserable about it, let me tell you. But
I'll bet.
I got, you know what I mean? I was trying to get my diabetes under control because at the time they were talking about putting me on insulin because my sugar was so high. And I was like, you're not putting me on insulin. That's a whole different story. But
Yeah.
my doctor was like, there's no way you can cut your sugar from 31 down enough in enough time that we're not going to have to put you on insulin. I said, give me a month. A month later, I was at 15. He said, how the
Okay.
hell do you do that? And then a month later, I was at 7. And he was like, how the hell did you do that? And I've never been higher than in between 5 and 7 since.
Okay.
But
Is it something you-
I cut out all pop. I cut out all sugar. I cut out, like, at the time, I'd cut out everything that could possibly make it so my blood sugar was high.
Okay. Okay. Is it something that you monitor regularly, or do you do regular blood work to stay on top of things, or it's just what you're
Once,
eating and you should be okay?
once a year, he monitors me, but I've ever since the second month after I was diagnosed diabetic, he says basically it looks like my diabetes went into remission, and he says he's never seen that in his entire life. But
Okay.
at the
Okay.
time before, when my blood sugar was 31, I ate like shit.
Right.
Lots of
Okay.
sweets, lots of this, lots of that. I didn't care. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So that kind of confirms a part assumption of mine that eating to that size is a compounding effect. Like you said, you sort of you let it go for a bit and you make excuses, and then it becomes this bigger mountain to climb, and you think, I'll just drive the car, or I'll go around, or I'll just take a nap, I'll have a bag of chips or whatever, and that internal monologue that you have just sort of prevents you from doing anything but gain weight or do very little, right? um,
Absolutely.
I'm curious, since you decided to make the change and pass the surgery and everything you've done to maintain where you're at, how would you say your relationship with food has changed?
I'm a lot more conscientious of what I eat. I mean, you have to be, especially right after the surgery. The first, I'd say probably, they say like it's a lifelong journey, which it is, but it's become such a habit now that I don't even notice it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in the beginning, you're conscious of every single thing, like, because you got to remember that I went from being able to eat a full plate of food to like, you can fit this much in there. There's no room for anything. So you got to make sure that your food that you're getting is of nutritional value, has a certain amount of nutritional value. At the same time, it's got to taste really good because you're only getting that little bit.
Right.
So
Right.
being a cook helped a lot because I know about seasoning and so on and so forth. So for the 3 pieces of chicken that I could actually put in my mouth, like the 3 little bites of chicken, I could season it and making it taste fabulous,
Right.
But that's where a lot of people that have the surgery, they struggle afterwards. That, and they, like, you'll see people in some of these support groups and they just had the surgery 6 weeks ago and they're back to drinking pop and they're drinking this, and I had a cheeseburger from McDonald's today. Are you kidding me? Then why'd you have the surgery?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say I never eat fast food because I do, but
Okay.
at this point, I'll eat, if I have because I work on the road a lot, if I have to get fast food, I'm getting a cheeseburger from McDonald's. Before I used to eat 2 Big Macs.
Right. Right.
There's no room. And the biggest thing that people do when they have the surgery that screw it up is they'll eat past when they feel full. And that's the biggest thing that you have to realize in your brain. The second you feel full, stop eating. 2 hours from now, you might be eating again because you've processed that food. But if you do that all day long, awesome.
Sure.
A big thing people don't understand about diet is that when you eat, it takes 2 hours after you eat for your metabolism to even turn on, right? So if you don't eat breakfast, and I eat breakfast every day now, I never used to eat breakfast, period. I used to eat once a day, pretty much at supper time, and it was a mountain of food like this, And then I would be going to bed at 10 o'clock at night. Let's say I ate that at 7 o'clock at night. I'd be going to bed at 10 o'clock at night. Well, that food is just all my metabolism turned on and I turned it off when I went to bed.
Right.
By eating breakfast every morning, I turn my metabolism on, and then a couple hours later, I'm having, for lack of better words, a snack, which is usually fruit, grapes or banana or something like that.
Yep.
And then a couple hours after that, I'm having lunch, which will be, a sandwich on whole grain bread type thing, turkey or, and I can't even usually eat the whole sandwich. The dog ends up getting a chunk of it. And then in the afternoon, again, another snack like, grapes or banana or yogurt or something like that. And then supper, so it's an all day long thing. Well, my metabolism runs from 2 hours after I eat breakfast until just before I go to bed now. Makes a huge difference. It never has a chance to turn off all day.
Right. Do you find yourself constantly thinking about food, or is it just second nature for you now?
In the beginning, it was really tricky. It's like trying to take crack away from a crack addict.
Yeah. It's an addiction, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's like when you were talking earlier and you're saying that it kind of compounded. It's like any drug addict out there. They didn't go out there trying to be a drug addict. It happened over.
Of course.
It's the same thing with obese people, and people don't understand that. Nobody got up yesterday and said, I'm going to try to get as fat as possible.
Unless you got a TLC contract, but
but it's slowly
like nobody wakes up and says, "Oh, I can't wait till I'm 423 pounds," then I really hit the mark, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It compounded over time. It became, like I said, for lack of better words, like a drug addict or a crack addict. Well, it's the same thing with food. We have to retrain our entire brains. We have to go from me eating one big meal at supper time a day and throughout the day, because I was a cook, constantly tasting food in the kitchen, probably more than I should. But you all of a sudden, I'm making myself eat breakfast every day. Like, I will not start my day without having my breakfast.
And what's breakfast look like?
Honestly, a lot of times I really like to have, it's called egg creations. So it's the eggs that come in a little carton that have like 2 eggs is 60 calories if you get it in that. They remove a lot of the fatty stuff.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I'll pour some of that in a bowl and I'll put in mushrooms and green pepper, and then I'll put a little bit of cheese and I'll make an omelet. Or if I'm feeling lazy, it's just raisin bran.
Okay. So I'm going to test my assumptions here, as I mentioned, but I think a lot of people, myself included, would think, okay, well, to lose weight, you just have to eat well and exercise. And you chose to do a medical route, but it seems like that wasn't really a choice given your actual medical and physical conditions. Your stomach just wasn't going to permit that. So what would you say has been or is the largest misconception about you losing your weight through medical intervention versus diet and exercise?
I'll be really frank with you, and excuse the language, it really pisses me off when people say we took the easy route.
Sure.
It really pisses me off. And anyone that's had this surgery, they'll agree and attest to it. This is not the easy route. This is as hard, if not harder, than going the other route, because one day you can eat anything you want, and the next day you better not. You're going to get real sick.
Yeah.
So you can't even scale it back. You go from regular eating to follow these rules or you're going to be in shit.
Right.
Okay? And you have to follow these rules pretty much for the rest of your life, or you're going to gain it back, or you're going to be sick a lot.
Right.
It's called dumping syndrome. So if you eat something that your body doesn't like, your body will make you vomit after the surgery, and they call it dumping. It can be any trigger. Let's say before you really liked yogurt. After the surgery, you could go to eat yogurt and your stomach says, nope, we're not letting you have that. And you are going to throw up every time you have yogurt.
Really? It just doesn't know how to process that anymore.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
And the biggest thing that pisses me off, like I was saying, is people, because we get it all the time. Oh, he took the easy route.
Yeah.
I went and I had to take a year-long worth of medical appointments. I had to go all the way to Toronto. I had to let them cut me open. I had to let them play in my insides, sew me back up, and then I had to recover and I had to lose weight.
So
Does that really seem all that simple?
No, it doesn't. And I'm on your side here, because it sounds to me like all I have to do is the diet and exercise. You have to do the diet and exercise, but you also had major surgery.
Yeah, and like it's, I don't know how I'm trying to verbalize it here. Give me a second.
Yeah.
It's like people that are just a little overweight. Let's say you're 20 or 30 pounds overweight and you go on keto and you lose your 20 or 30 pounds. And you're like, well, why didn't you just go on keto? You don't think that most of us bigger people have tried every single thing under the sun before we decided to go for major surgery?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I know a single person that was like, this was my first option. Like, and I'm in multiple support groups. And when, like a lot of people that are just going into the surgery, like they're in there and they're scared. And I remember being scared. Like, it's a major surgery. You're on a table opened up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and none of us picked this for our first choice. I don't think I've met anyone yet that said, yeah, you know, decided I was fat and just got the surgery.
Right.
Like, I thought about this for probably a year and a half before I actually did it.
Yeah.
And then it
Meanwhile,
takes another year.
right?
Well, it takes another year from there to actually get the surgery, you know, by the time you go through all the appointments that they make you go through. They do that on purpose.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's scary. Like, you're taking an elective surgery to try to better your life. And then you see the people on there that have failed even after the surgery. So you're like, am I going to be the failure?
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to be the guy that it didn't work on? Like, I was supposed to lose 70 pounds over 2 years. That was my projected weight loss.
Right.
Absolutely unacceptable to me. I didn't do this to lose 70 pounds over 2 years. I did this to get myself in shape and then stay that way. So in the 6 months that I was off, well, 5 months that I was off because of the 2 months for the surgery and then the 3 months because of COVID, I took full advantage and I went balls to the wall.
Mm-hmm.
I had the time.
Yeah.
Why not utilize it?
Yeah. Would you say it's a fair assessment that we as a society have come to accept anybody from any walk of life except for fat people or obese people? And I'm not trying to be politically incorrect, but
No.
I'm trying to call a spade here.
Absolutely. I live in a small town. All we have for stores, we have a couple of stores downtown and we have a Walmart. Do you know how hard it was for me to even just get clothes? At that size, I needed a 5X shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the end, the Walmart here, because I think they realize that because they get in, let's say 5Xs, well, they'd be gone in 10 minutes.
Okay.
So finally they started bringing in more, but it's even more so the way people would look at you. I would go apply for a job as a cook and they're looking at me thinking I'm going to eat their whole kitchen instead of do the job.
Right.
You know, the only thing that was good for me is because of where I had worked at the one job, people could actually see me working. So I could get job offers fairly frequently because they were like, hey, like, we see the way you go here, like, we'd like you to come work for us, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like often bigger people are very discriminated against.
Mm-hmm.
And
I guess bigger people would be a better terminology, so I'll apologize for my earlier phrasing.
no, it's okay. I used to call myself a fat fuck all the time. Pardon my language.
No, but I'm using it more to try to get the point across, not because that's, you know,
Yeah.
I try not to be judgmental, right? But truth be told, I definitely walk around and I think I couldn't imagine being that size. I wouldn't want to be that size. And of course, neither do you. Neither do people at that size, right? And of course, that's not the benefit of the doubt I'm giving them in my mind at that
Right.
moment. And
Everybody assumes that the fat person chose to be fat. They don't
course.
understand that there's probably a story behind them being that big.
Yeah. Well,
You know, I mean, some people just right from birth. I have a friend in North Bay that I was born and raised with, and this poor guy, at 6 years old, he was almost 6 feet tall, and I bet you 350 pounds. I think he's probably pushing 550 pounds now. He's about almost 7 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
Like he just right from birth, just a big guy. And I've watched that. Like the only way he can weigh himself is on a truck scale, like at a trucking weigh station.
Mm-hmm.
He'll pull in and he'll get out of his truck and weigh his truck, and then he'll get in his truck and then weigh the truck with him in it. And that's how he weighs himself. Like that's how big he is. And the guy, he's just naturally born that way. As far like I've known him since he was 6 years old, and he was huge at 6, you know. But for the most part, a lot of the people, of course, there's, and I'm sorry to say it this way, there's some people that just don't give a shit.
Yeah.
And there's other people that really, really do, and they try everything to lose weight, to be better, to be in shape, to like I know people that have tried for a year and a half, 2 years, and they quit drinking the pop and they quit the sugar. I did it.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't lose a pound.
Mm-hmm.
And that's frustrating and discouraging. That's what the surgery is there for, is those people.
Yeah. And I couldn't imagine, because I'm definitely one of those people that, you know, when I start working on something, I want to see results fairly quickly. So I couldn't imagine going a year doing all that hard work and effort and then seeing no results from it. Right. I think that would weigh on, no pun intended here, but I think that would weigh on anybody's psyche and confidence level, right? That you feel like you're doing all the right things. You're just basically pushing water uphill though, right? What would be your number one piece of advice to give people who are struggling with their weight or confidence of living in the body they have? And I'm not saying what they look like, how heavy they are, because I don't think it matters. I think you can feel badly about the way you look and be a quote unquote healthy size, and you can feel great in your body at an unhealthy size, right? From a societal perspective. So what would you tell people that are having that same struggle internally, regardless of what they look like?
My biggest thing, like, and it's kind of a roundabout way of answering your question, sorry, but since I've lost the weight, I feel great. I feel like a new man. I'm confident. I feel like I look good. I feel good. It's rolled down into every part of my life. Like, I mean, I started a new career, got a mortgage. I changed a whole pile of things that I wasn't happy with. Every day I go out and exercise. I smile a lot more. I'm in a better mood 99% of the time than I've been in 10 years. So my biggest thing for anyone that's struggling with any part of their life is fix the problem. Pinpoint what you don't like and try to figure out how to solve it. If you don't like the way you look in the mirror every day and tell yourself that you like the way you look until you believe it, because that's going to roll all the way down into every other part of your life. You know, it's one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, and that's just the way life is, right? And that's basically the gist of this entire conversation. When I got big, I didn't mean to. It just eventually, that's where I was at. It's the same thing with what your basic question is like, if you hate what you're doing for a living, change what you're doing for a living. If you hate the way you look, get a different haircut, wear a hat till you feel like you look good. When you feel like you look good, you're going to feel good. You're going to walk better. You're going to talk better. Your life's going to move in a positive manner. And as soon as a little bit of positivity shows up, a lot more seems to follow it. So my biggest thing to anybody out there, and if anybody that's dealing with any long-term weight issues whatsoever, if you're thinking about getting the surgery, go for the surgery. My biggest regret is that I didn't do it sooner. That I didn't get my life back sooner, to enjoy it sooner, because I'd probably be a lot further than I am right now today if I would have done this 5 years ago. I'm not sad with where I'm at. Make sure you're mentally ready, get yourself in a good spot, get ready to make the changes you need to make, and go. One of the guys that when I was working in the truck stop, he had the surgery and he was 55 years old. And I asked him the one day, because I saw him getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And this is while I was just going through the thought process of getting the surgery. I asked him one day, so what's your biggest regret? He said, my biggest regret is that I didn't do this 10 years ago, because I probably would have added 30 years to my life.
Yeah.
And he's dead right. And he was the pivot point in my mind. Him saying at 55 that he regretted waiting till he was 55. Well, I'm 44. I got it done at 43.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to wait till I'm 54. And then I've missed out on another 10 years of doing whatever the hell I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
My life's great now. If I want to go for a walk, I go for a walk. If I want to go for a bike ride, I go for a bike ride. If I want to, and I do my 10,000 steps a day every day, because that's what seems to keep my weight stable. Everyone's got to find what works for them in that regard. My 10,000 steps a day, I like working out in my gym just because that's where I get rid of all my frustration, all my anger, all my everything. I go down there, I come out of it, I feel like $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something I choose to do. That, and I like the way I look muscular.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my biggest thing is just everybody knows what they're unhappy with in their life, and most people are really afraid to try to change it. Go for the change. What's the worst that's going to happen?
Yeah.
You'd be surprised at what something will do, because something might put you on a path to something completely different.
Yeah.
That one step might, you might be thinking, okay, I'm going to go A, B, C, D. And then all of a sudden you're going 1, 2, 3, but A brought on 1.
Right. Do you think that some of your success is attributed to the fact that you no longer work in kitchens, or do you feel like
No, I lost all my weight before
Okay.
I lost all my weight before I ever quit the kitchens. I lost all my weight in the first 6 months. I went back to the kitchens for almost 2 months before I quit to go into the construction, because I knew there was another lockdown coming, and I wasn't wrong. They've just been closed for another 3 months.
Sure.
I knew that was coming. I mean, I'm not stupid. If we got shut down last March, it was surely coming again during second wave, and I needed to get out. That's why I chose to change my industry. But I had already lost all my weight while I was still in that kitchen.
Right.
I went back for the 2 months. I never gained a pound.
Okay.
It had nothing to do with the actual. I think if I would have stayed in the kitchens, I might have started gaining weight back because I was depressed doing the job that I was fed up doing, not because I was eating in the kitchen. A month before my surgery, and a month in Canada, the way they do it is before you have your surgery, 2 weeks to a month before your surgery, you have to go on these shakes called OptiFast shakes. Okay. So you're only allowed to have 4 shakes a day.
Okay.
And then depending on which doctor you have, 1 cup of green vegetables a day. That's all you get to eat for 2 to 4 weeks before the surgery. They say it's to get the fat down around your liver. I call bupkis on that. It's to see if you've got enough self-control to see if you're going to be able to handle it.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a willpower test.
That was the hardest part, because I was still in the kitchen. I still had a really big stomach because I hadn't had the surgery yet. And I was on those fucking shakes for 4 weeks.
Right.
That was the hardest part. And if I got through that part in those 4 weeks while I was still really fat, after the surgery, that kitchen was a piece of cake.
Right. Right.
The amount of self-control I had to show in the 4 weeks before I was actually had the surgery to not eat a damn thing in that kitchen around all that food.
Yeah.
And I did it. Right there was proof to me that I could handle working in a kitchen the rest of my life and not get fat again.
But yeah, no, I appreciate your candor so far, and it's been a very interesting story, motivational for sure. I knew it would be just based on the picture and what you shared online, because I don't think anybody makes that kind of change without having a story to share about it. And I'm happy to hear yours, so thank you very much.
Thank you for taking the time to hear it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So right into a couple rapid fire questions, and then we'll call it a day.
Okay.
What was your worst job ever?
My worst job ever?
Mm-hmm.
Probably my first cooking job, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Right out of high school, I worked at a place. I don't want to really say the name of it.
Yeah.
The head chef was a complete alcoholic. I watched him pick up a case of romaine lettuce and knock a guy out with it for cutting one of the heads wrong.
Oh.
Yeah, I worked for that guy for 3 years.
Okay.
I learned after him that any other boss would be really easy.
I'll bet. What podcast or book do you recommend the most?
I've actually never listened to a podcast in my life.
Okay. How about book or author?
Yeah, honestly, and most people laugh when I say this until they actually bother with it. Arnold Schwarzenegger's book.
I hear it's actually a good read. I haven't read it.
It's outstanding for anybody who's thinking about changing their life. Some of the stuff he talks about and the way that he words it, I don't know if he actually worded it, but whoever wrote it, or if he wrote it himself, he really thought it through.
Okay.
If you're going to ask me favorite movie, I can tell you right now, it's Rocky.
Okay.
Nothing will motivate you more than that movie if you watch it and you take everything in it to context.
Yeah.
You know, when you're tired and you're fed up, one more round, get up, go again. Don't quit. On the days when I don't feel like working out, on the days when I don't feel like walking, on the days when I just felt like giving up, no, get up, one more round. Don't. That one sentence runs through my head 100 times a day. Every time I'm frustrated or want to quit, no, one more round.
If you could give your 20-year-old self a piece of advice, what would it be?
First of all, don't marry that girl.
Okay.
Second of all, if I give my 20-year-old self a piece of advice, I'd tell my 20-year-old self to stay true to yourself, pay attention to your future a little more. Try to think about yourself 20 years from then, and hopefully you'll like where you're at a lot sooner than how long it took you to get to where you are.
Okay.
I don't know if that made sense.
I'm sure it makes sense more to you than it will to anybody watching, and that's quite all right. It's I think there's some
long and the short of it is
that.
at 20 years old, if I would have looked a little more forward to my future, I would have taken a very different route than I did to get to where I am. And right now I would be probably running one of the divisions of the company I'm working for.
Right.
Basically, I got comfortable at a certain type of job and just stayed there no matter what, when really the money sucks, the hours suck. It's not a glorious profession.
Sure. Okay.
So
fair enough. And this has absolutely no relation to the conversation. I have literally asked every single person on here the same question.
Okay.
What is your go-to feel-good food?
My go-to feel-good food. I absolutely love Caesar salad.
Okay. That's yeah.
It's a weird thing. I've loved it my whole life. I can eat it anytime. I always enjoy it.
Okay.
If I'm feeling miserable, I can have myself a Caesar salad and I seem to feel better. And I don't know why, it's just something.
Whatever works. That's good. All right, Steve. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you for being here, and we'll stay in touch, okay?
Awesome. Have a great day.
Yeah, take care. Thanks.